They are my lethal
And we're
weapons. I have to be quiet when you need anything else.
Oh, yeah, those are sharpshooters.
Okay. Gosh, you all are so prepared and attentive, I didn't even have to ring the bell. Welcome to Cherry Hill on what's turned out to be a very cool afternoon. Aren't we glad that we have central heating now? Anyway, so glad you were here, and we're looking forward to having Robert back with us. He's been here a couple of times, but we want him to come without anybody else, just on his own, and let us have a whole afternoon of just his music. So we're looking forward to that very much. We do have a concert next month on the 26th, which will be Joy Jan Jones. She's a soprano who's been here once before, and we're looking forward to having her here. So mark that on your calendars, the 26th of March. Beth, as always, has wonderful refreshments. We will have beverages on the porch, but she will have plates already fixed for us. So looking forward to seeing what she's treating us to this afternoon. At any rate, so glad to have you back with us, Robert, and I'm going to get out of the way so we can enjoy your performance.
Well, thank you very much, Mary, and I'm so glad to be back here. This is the best concert venue that there is. We were just speaking that Warrenton truly is the center of the universe, and I believe it. So it's great to be back, and this program today, as you can see, is a bit unusual. It's all violin arrangements, and I think I might explain myself a little bit as to why that is. This is a program that I've been working on and off for several years. It started with the feeling I had that I wish I had been a violinist. Well, my wife, who's a wonderful pianist and also works with me at ECU, we work together, she said that either it's too late or I have to work really hard, and I decided I'm lazy, so I can't switch to the violin, but the next best solution would be to play violin music on the piano. So that's what this is. And I see my good friend Eric there, and Eric, we've played together. He's a violinist, and I just love how he plays and love the instrument. So dedicate this program to Eric and to all the violinists of past and present that I love so much. In particular, a big inspiration for this program is the violinist Ivry Gitlis, the Israeli-born French violinist who I've listened to many times and has brought me through some rough patches. Not only his playing, but his speaking. And he always says that the way you play is the way you speak, and music is storytelling. And I love his freedom, I love his way of playing, which is more like a gypsy rather than a classical player, and I think that that's wonderful. I ended up writing an email to him when the pandemic started, and I remember very clearly Christmas Eve 2020, he died at the age of 98, and I decided that at that moment I got to do this program. Now, they wanted 90 minutes, so this program has been on and off under construction for a while. I'm going to play a few things at the end that are non-violin, so that's just how it's been. But at any rate, listening to Ivry got me into listening to all these other great violinists of the past who were his peers that he outlived, of course. Nathan Milstein, Yehudi Menuhin, Jascha Heifetz, etc., etc. Misha Elman. There's a documentary I would highly recommend you to watch called The Art of Violin. It's on YouTube free, I think, unless they changed that. So anyway, I do talk too much, sorry. I will speak about each piece.
No, it's
All right.
great.
Well, it's a tendency, being that I'm half Russian, they talk a lot, and half Southeast Virginia, my dad, both cultures tend to talk a lot. So, I'm going to start off today with the Bach Chaconne from the Partita number 2. This is a work originally for solo violin, and Ferruccio Busoni has reimagined it as a piano piece that's actually quite organ-like in its sound. The story goes that Bach, he would travel by foot to hear other musicians. Nowadays, we can just get in a car or a plane, but not then, not in the early 1700s. And he was coming back from one such journey, probably was for many months he was away, and he came home to the news that his wife, his first wife, Maria Barbara, had died. He had, over the course of his life, about, I think, 20 to 25 kids also. So, yeah, and very industrious man. And he was teaching Sunday school, teaching Latin, playing the organ. I don't know how people did it back then. We're so much lazier nowadays, and I'm thankful for that. But anyways, he apparently wrote this piece after that event. And this piece, it's, I would say it's the stages of grief in music. And you know that the stages of grief are not linear. We've all experienced this. You know? We can go back and forth between different stages of grief, and this piece has that. Another thing I read fascinating about Bach, they say that the emotions in Bach are not those of opera. In opera, the emotions could be jealousy, greed, even lust. Bach, devout Christian that he was, the emotions are more universal. Joy, suffering, sadness, grace, redemption, all of these things. And I hear that in here. Brahms, who wrote another arrangement, which I am not going to play because it's for the left hand alone, and that scares me. Brahms said in a letter to Clara Schumann, he said that if I had this music in my head that Bach did, for a single line instrument, the violin alone, he said I would have gone crazy. So here it is, stalling here because it's a difficult piece. Good luck to you and to me. The Chaconne in D minor, as arranged, it's arranged by Ferruccio Busoni, Italian composer and pianist. And one more thing is that the chaconne, what is a chaconne? It's a type of dance, actually. It's a mournful dance, a grieving dance. Some say it's originally from Spain, but I've read other sources, they say actually there's speculation that it came from Latin America and in the colonial period ended up in Spain and then spread throughout Europe. I liken it to another dance called the Tarantella. The Tarantella supposedly was done near Naples, Italy. If you got bitten by a tarantula, you would do this dance and supposedly it would cure you of the venom. Well, I would think of the chaconne as a dance that would be done to purge grief. So start with that, and then we'll have some lighter music towards the end, I promise. So. it's a lot, you know, heavy stuff. So catch my breath a little. It burns calories very well too. So next, I'm gonna play some even much simpler pieces. Not really. These are the Paganini studies of Franz Liszt, arranged by Franz Liszt. And because I'm a very crazy person, I decided to relearn them a week or two ago in the Busoni version. Busoni reworked some passages of these pieces, and I like it very much what he did. So, but at any rate, talk about these three people who contributed to what you're going to hear. Paganini was very interesting. He was sui generis, in that if you look at his dates, he lived in really what was the classical era, the 18th century, kind of around the time of Mozart, Haydn. Yet his musical style, it has some resemblance to that time, but not a whole lot. I would say that he just had this intuition in him, and he wrote music unlike other people at that time. Other people usually, even Mozart, it was more about taking old forms and putting your own signature on them. Well, Paganini was just him. And I think that makes him more in line with the Romantics in the 19th century. And I think that that's what Liszt and others in the 19th century saw in him, and why he was such an inspiration. And you can think of all the music based on Paganini, the Paganini Rhapsody of Rachmaninoff, for example. Even Lutoslawski, who was a more recent composer in the 20th century, he wrote a fantasy on that. Schumann wrote a bunch of pieces inspired by Paganini. So that's Paganini. He played violin in such a way people even believed that he was possessed at that time. Different times, I guess, or maybe not. At any rate, yeah, some people might say that about now, but Paganini, Liszt heard Paganini, and it was a transformative experience for him in Paris in the 1830s, or 20s even, I'm not sure exactly. Liszt, child prodigy, even though he was a child prodigy, he came, by the time he got to Paris, he was having a hard time. People don't talk about the hard times that composers and stuff have. They do. Liszt was kind of nobody for a while. He was teaching a lot, and he actually fell in love with this princess, and not princess, a nobleman's daughter or something. I always say princess. And it didn't work out, and he wanted to jump in the Seine River. He was very, very depressed. And he told his father was dying, it was just a terrible time. And he told his father, I want to be a priest. He was devoutly Catholic. And that's going to come back at the end of the concert today. I'm going to play some Liszt and stuff at the end. And his father said, no, you must be a musician. Adam Liszt is dead. But anyway, his father passed away, but shortly after, the young Liszt hears Paganini play the violin. And that was it. It did it for him. We've all had an experience where we meet someone who does that to us, I think. He locked himself in a room for 2 years, practiced incessantly while reading literature. That's another part of it. Became educated too. And he emerged as the Franz Liszt we know of today, almost like a rock star. And part of what he did was arrange some of the caprices and some excerpts of other works by Paganini for the piano. Many versions of this music. So he wrote the original 1838, I think, version. Then he decided it was too difficult, and trust me, I'm not playing that. It's impossible. He revised it in the 1850s, and then Busoni revised it again and maybe added some more things again to it, which I'm going to do now. And now I'm starting to think, I don't know if I should. But anyway, it's okay. We'll get through this. What do I want to say about? I'll talk about each piece as we go along. The first one, it's nicknamed Tremolo because it's a study that uses this that's a tremolo, this vibrating sound. You have to have a lot of coffee before you play that. So he combines two caprices for solo violin by Paganini. The first one is this scales and arpeggios caprice, and then this in the middle section, this tremolo caprice, which is. Now there's a misconception, I think, about Liszt and about Paganini. That is that these men were showmen. That it's all about virtuosity and show. And I think that could not be farther from the truth. This was a time period, the 1830s, of showmanship, and I can give you an example. There's a guy named Alfred Dreischock, who we don't hear of today, and there's probably a reason for that. I don't mean to speak ill of him, I don't know his music, but one critic at the time said that he played so loudly that if the wind was right, you could hear it in Vienna from Paris. So I hope I'm not doing that today, but that's, but anyway, I think that Liszt and Paganini are much more than that. Yes, the showmanship's part of it, but there's a soul there, there's a lot of depth that's overlooked. This piece, to me, it's spooky. I imagine I'm in a abandoned cathedral somewhere in Tuscany or somewhere, which is where Paganini was from, I think. And it's damp and it's creepy, I don't know. So I'll play the first one and we'll go on from there. You tell me after what you imagine, I'm curious. cold and having sick kids at home. It's not COVID, I tested it, something or other. So don't get too close, I guess. It's hard to play this stuff with that. But I guess the adrenaline clears the sinuses, so it's good. At any rate, I just was thinking about the idea of an arrangement. I think arrangements are not played as much as they were nowadays as in the past. And nowadays there's this tendency towards going for purity in music. I'm convinced that there's no such thing. Reading accounts of how composers would change the same piece, they would never play the same way twice. Beethoven, for example, Chopin, they were improvisers. And so what Busoni did here is a third arrangement almost. He is in this one and the next one, he didn't do too much, although the very last couple pages, Busoni rethought it. That was common in 100 years ago or more for pianists to do that. It was not considered sacrilege to do that. Mahler, for example, would rearrange Mozart's symphonies for an orchestra. Imagine doing that today. It's a big no-no. I'm not saying I'm always a fan of this. I think sometimes maybe it's we want to hear the original. But at any rate, I think a good arrangement is, I like it because I can access things that I'm not, like being a violinist. I could pretend and still play piano. I think arrangements like translation of literature. A good translator, it's 50% the translator, 50% the original author. It can't be literal. These pieces are not literal translations at all of the original violin music. They can't be. They are rethought and reimagined as a good translation. But anyway, so the talking again. So this second one is funny because whenever I play it at home, having a musician wife, also pianist, she always says, you know, this piece is just so silly for me, I can't take it seriously. And I thought about this a lot. We have a new, our dear old cat Max died recently, and a week or two later, this tiny kitten showed up. And now we have that cat and our other cat. So at any rate, she says, when I hear this piece, I just see the cats chasing each other across the room. That's it. I can't take it seriously, particularly this part. You know. So I can't take it seriously. And I thought about this for a while, and I think that classical music need not be so serious all the time. And this is a joke piece. It's a scherzando piece. In the middle, of course, it gets quite, quite serious, but not for long. So, yeah, I think this is completely comic. crazy music. So now I'm regretting the choice. I'm kidding. I love the music, but it's just, why does it have to be so many notes? The second half's a little more transparent. So this last one, the La Campanella, is really, truly nuts. This is from I think it's the second violin concerto, Eric, I may be wrong, but it's from the second violin concerto of Paganini, the last movement. And what Liszt has done is taken the theme and done some kind of variations and fantasia on it. And Busoni took that even further, let's say. So La Campanella, the piece is about little bells, a little bell. And so it has this constant D sharp in the, So again, the Busoni, this is quite substantially rewritten from the Liszt. The Liszt starts out kind of, Busoni starts it different. So if you hear it and it seems you think, wait a minute, what's he doing? Well, that's Busoni's fault, to take it up with him. So, because I'm playing that version. Yeah, this piece, again, is typically thought of as a very virtuosic piece, but what I find in this is something very esoteric, actually. I think it's an esoteric piece, and I think that it's notable that the dynamic marking is loud or soft and that sort of thing. It doesn't say loud until the very last 2 pages. It actually indicates piano soft, which is interesting. I don't know if I'll succeed, but that's what it says, and so it tells a lot of people, I've heard, but it's La Campanella, it's a little bell, not a big one. So here it is. Also, good luck to you and to me, because I don't know, this piece this is insane. So, okay.
Flight of the bumblebee.
Yeah, pretty much. I hope no one got stung. So let's take maybe a short break. And the interesting thing is, I promise you, the second half is all about subtlety. So this was bombastic. So take a little break. I will too. Maybe get some water, catch your breath, and we will have more.
Stand up for a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I might